working each week? Most people would answer 40, 50 hours. And then I'd ask, how many hours do you spend on your personal finances each week? They say, oh, once a month I check my bank balances, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's good, but you're missing a lot of things. If you're going to continue that ratio of 1 hour a month to 160 hours of work, you're going to be very good at work and not very good with your finances. So
Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and have a great show for you today. I think the whole world is looking for more financial literacy, more financial wellness, meaning, you understand things and you're able to take action with your finances, and that alleviates a lot of stress, which contributes to your wellness. So we'll find out what our guest today has to say about financial wellness, but that's my little take on it. I have a terrific guest today who teaches this amazingly well for a lot of people. So I'm going to introduce him. His name is Vince Shorb. And Vince is one of the country's leading advocates for promoting financial wellness and a thought leader in teaching and scaling financial education programming. After spending 15 years in financial services, working one-on-one with more than 20,000 people, he founded the National Financial Educators Council, an organization dedicated to combating the financial illiteracy epidemic. He is the current CEO of the NFEC, an IACET accredited company and a certified B Corporation. Vince's mission is to create a world where people are informed to make qualified financial decisions and confidently take effective financial action that best helps them meet their basic human needs while moving toward fulfilling their personal, family, and global community goals. Shorb has led the NFEC in the development of 2,500 financial education programs and more than 80 financial literacy assets and financial education standards that guide the industry. His focus is on mobilizing and developing community champions and empowering them with the resources, knowledge, and processes they need to help their communities' citizens work toward financial self-sufficiency and security. And that, of course, makes communities so much better and people so much better who are living in those communities. Vince, welcome.
Michelle, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We had a conversation before, and I just found this fascinating. It's always fascinating to just see what people are doing and to learn about these organizations that you don't know about. And I love that you're doing this, and I love that you've created an organization around it. Can you tell us a little about how you started?
I really started because of frustrations I had as a teenager, young adult, where they weren't teaching money in school. I was learning a lot of things I've never used to this day. And then when I had some early success with money, so things were going well, but I made some mistakes as well. I learned on my own for those successes. I also learned on my own for those mistakes. It took me years to recover from. And I got into financial services because I really did enjoy talking with people about money, helping them with their finances and doing those things. And after a while, I was in a mortgage space the last 7 years of that period. And I just felt like I was putting a Band-Aid on people. I wasn't really elevating them to those next areas. And I was a little handcuffed by compliance and so forth. So I really wanted to help people proactively, help them make really good financial decisions, and not only just help them, but empower them so they have that confidence, so they can sleep well at night and have a basic plan to work towards. And that's when we founded the National Financial Educators Council. And that was back in 2006. And we're here today still with a slightly changed mission. Back then, we were doing events, campaigns personally, right? I was going out speaking tours, college tours, and so forth. And now we're empowering financial educators and coaches, training them in local communities. So local communities have really access to qualified people to help them with their finances, with the ultimate goal of helping them work toward greater financial wellness.
I love that. Well, thank you for that. That's what we need. We are not taught anything in our regular school system. And even in college, I feel like there's enough people talking about our lack of financial literacy that you'd think that something would be underway already, but it still doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, when I entered the space, then I was like, okay, the big movement's coming. It's going to be in schools across the country. There's going to be massive action, and I want to be a part of this massive change in the country for the better. And my frustration has grown. My gloves are off today. What we've seen across these states is the few that are teaching financial literacy requirements in these state mandates. It's well under the rigor of any other subject. Mm-hmm. It's not meeting even the basic education standards. And they're not preparing these kids for the basic financial decisions they need to make. Things that got me in trouble, not knowing exactly how the credit system worked, getting caught up in credit card debt, taking on too much student loan debt, not really knowing the ins and outs of living on your own. All these things I experienced some pain points in, and I know just talking with thousands of recent graduates and college students across the country, they're experiencing pain points as well. And it's something we can proactively help them avoid. And there's a ton of great resources out there now to do so as well. Our goal is to light that flame so they want to continue to learn and grow their finances, again, toward a better, stronger position for them.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I actually, this morning, for some reason, I was doing a lot of thinking about this and the fact that there are a lot of resources. There are a tremendous number of resources, especially now between, books that always existed and classes you can take, not in school, but you have to find and take them yourself, but you can. And then, podcasts and YouTube videos and all the things. And so I started to wonder, it's not for a lack of resources and educational tools out there. So it's either that it's overwhelming or that we just grow up so kind of oblivious and ignorant to the whole thing that we don't really know where to start. I was trying to figure out, okay, because the tools exist, why isn't everybody sort of going after it themselves? I suppose you can make the same case for things like nutrition, but what do you think about that?
A very good point you brought up, especially with nutrition. I think money is very behavioral, right? It's very simple, right? We need money coming in. We need to control and manage our money going out, and we should be saving each month toward the future, right? So very similar to what you teach, money, entrepreneurship, and career. It's that money coming in, and how do we manage and grow it? It's really quite simple, but we're ingrained with financial behavior starting at a young age, right? We're influenced by parents. We're especially influenced by advertisers, media, social influencers. Some of the biggest shows on YouTube are unboxing videos for kids. Well, they'll unbox a new thing they bought, or they call them hauling videos for teenagers. So they'll show their haul from their shopping spree. So we have a lot of negative influences these days, and there's not really much being done to counteract that. In the formidable years when they're in elementary school, really financial education training is pretty much non-existent unless a parent takes control, which I think is very important. And then as they're moving through high school, still it's very, very limited, and the scope and the rigor is well below what it would take to learn any subject and to change behaviors. So because it's largely behavioral driven, there needs to be more time and energy put into helping people shape and mold positive behaviors, which isn't done in those formidable years. And then once we become adults, those habits stick with us. It takes a lot to break habits. Anybody that has a certain way of eating or smoking or drinking, whatever, it's tough to break those habits once they form. Very similar with personal finance. And a big part of our goal is to ignite that fire on hey, you can overcome any challenge you have, and to seek out those educators in the form that they like you mentioned, podcasts, right? Watching a show like yours, reading a book. We do more formal classes, workshops, and things in personal coaching, but there's many ways to learn. Blogs, like you mentioned, YouTube videos. So there's a lot of ways to learn, especially compared to back in my day. I don't want to age myself, but we had the library, the Dewey Decimal System, right? We had, some magazines and some books, right? You could purchase. but it wasn't like we have today. We have the beauty of today. We have access to information and a lot of people that that can influence in a very positive way. And that's a real big message we're promoting there.
Yeah, thank you. You brought up a point that I was laughing at because a good friend who's a librarian at the downtown Los Angeles library, and she's always telling me we have so many resources for financial literacy, for career development, all kinds of things, and nobody goes to the library anymore. Nobody knows, and you don't even have to go. You can use your library card and go online and get things. So, yeah, the library is still a pretty great resource that people are not really using as much as they could. But I love what you said because it is behavioral, it is emotional. I'm a former CPA, and I had 15 years of working in corporate accounting and finance. Never once was the emotional aspect of money mentioned. And then when I started kind of doing some messy things with my money, it wasn't until I found a coach who taught that aspect of money that I realized, well, that's where all my decision making is coming from. It's not coming from my brain. It's coming from, my beliefs and ideas and habits that are driving me to make certain decisions. So we're hearing about it a lot more, at least I am, because I'm in that world, so I notice it. But it's still probably not something widespread that people are trying to look at, and frankly, I think you need help to look at it. That is one thing when you're looking at your own behavior and habits and things like that and patterns. It does help to have an outsider come in and help you unpack that.
I think a third party, that's unbiased and has that your best interest at heart is always good to have in that corner and can tell it to you honestly. What we find is people really never do a deep dive into their financial situation. They rely on just they're not looking at that from a very, analytical state. You don't have to be analytical to be good with money, but you need to look at the big picture, right? What are the near-term things I'm really trying to achieve? What are the long-term things I'm trying to achieve? And how can I create a simple plan that I can do on a weekly, monthly basis to get to those states? When we look at people working, and this was one of the questions I always like to ask when I was an active coach and educator before my current role was, how much time do you spend working each week? Most people would answer 40, 50 hours. And then I'd ask, how many hours do you spend on your personal finances each week? They say, once a month I check my bank balances, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's good, but you're missing a lot of things. If you're going to continue that ratio of 1 hour a month to 160 hours of work, you're going to be very good at work and not very good with your finances. So,
right.
I think the goal, we try to motivate people by saying, hey, if you could just shift a little more time to your personal finances, a lot of these areas where you're having to spend working could be reduced in the future. So it's just, how people want to dedicate their time. But to your point, a lot of people are experiencing pain, feeling of frustration, feeling of unworthiness about their money. And sometimes when you're feeling like that, you just don't want to look at it, right? You made some mistakes, you feel behind the 8 ball, so you don't want to really look at your personal finances from that. And where a third party can come in, understand that, communicate with you and help you alleviate some of that stress as well, and give you a game plan to follow.
Yeah, I love what you just said, and it is the looking at it that I think you nailed it, because I think it is having to face yourself and look at what's going on, and I love what you said about the 1 hour a month, because that, if you care about any relationship you have and you're spending 1 hour a month with that person or in that relationship, you're just not going to get very far with that. So and that is what people do. They really minimize the time that they spend with their money. And it's like anything, too. The more you do it, the more you learn from people like you and kind of get into it, it gets more fun. I mean, you don't think it can be fun, but it does. And it also is, you think, I don't have time for that. But the more time you spend, actually, the freer you are, which is sort of what you were saying. You get your money under control, you're freer to change jobs, you're freer to, start that business or whatever it is you might be interested in. When you were speaking, I thought about something else too. I had talked to somebody about why corporate employees might be interested in more financial literacy programs. And they were saying, well, a lot of people get frustrated with jobs because they're actually not managing their money well. So they think they need to leave the job and earn more. But the reality is they just don't know enough about money management to make it work. So it really just leaks into every aspect of your life, which brings us back to what you help people do, which is financial wellness, that feeling of financial wellness. How would you define financial wellness for people?
Now, for everybody, it's different. I just want people to be secure, right? So they're not worried about tomorrow in the near term, right? So they know, hey, I have some money put away that I can survive for, whatever their security blanket needs to be, where they have a plan for the future, some hope, right? I think hope goes a long way. Yeah. Without hope, you're not motivated to do things. And you mentioned a point earlier about momentum. Once you get going, you have some momentum. So I think if we can help people carry some positive momentum where every month, a couple months, they're making some strides toward a better situation. And then also just, understanding the emotional aspect of money. It's not just data. It's not just analytical numbers. It's emotional. So, hey, when we have those setbacks, be able to take that breath and continue working forward. So I think, with money, it's always a progressive thing. So it's most people never reach that end goal. Even the ultra wealthy, we look at the billionaires out there, they're still not at their end goal. So I think it's always progressive and changing end goal and date. But as long as they're working toward that and they feel some positivity and they have their near-term needs met, I think that's a great state for people to be in. And that opens them up for things like you said, changing jobs, pursuing things that make them happier, spending more time with important relationships, and those other aspects in life that we all crave.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy or whatever, I mean, you have to address that sort of survival level experience first, and
Yes.
and from there are so many other financial avenues to take, and I think that's one of the tough places to be in because you're already worried about money. You already feel like you're maxed out on time So let us in on a little bit of what you teach and how you get people sort of to that place where they feel better.
Well, you mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. That's really a lot of what we're teaching is that psychology aspect of making sure their safety needs, physiological needs, security needs are met so they can experience those more pleasures in life. But beyond that, we're teaching, we want to make sure people know the topics that they're sharing, right? So they have that content knowledge. We want them to understand the behavioral finance aspects, right, that you're familiar with as the CPA. When people came in to do their taxes and they were shocked at what they owed that year, it's like, well, hey, we had a plan, right? This isn't anything new. You knew what the plan was. Also, the psychology aspects that you mentioned there that we're helping them achieve. In addition, education methodologies. There's proper ways to teach, and it's not just lecture and PowerPoint, right? In today's age, we know research-based education principles, things like visual learning cues, diversifying the learning so it's engaging the participants in ways that motivate them. Things like using case method and other project-based learning. These tools may be foreign to some people listening here, but they're research-based education principles. So we'll really teach them how to incorporate that from the education side. So the behavioral side, the psychology side, the education methodologies, and the content knowledge side, we really train our educators on. For coaches, we add on elements of understanding a client's personal financial situation from the ground up, from exact debt amount, exact interest rates through their goals and life stages they have. So maybe in 3 years, they're going to be having a kid, right? Well, we're going to start to plan now. In 10 years, maybe they may have to take care of a family member. So the coaches gets more on that personal level, or the educators are more broad and trying to educate the masses with quality education.
Yeah. So did you create the curriculum? Did you work with a team to do that? How did you build this certification program that you have?
Yeah. So when I first left the financial services industry, I want to get out there and start teaching and helping and volunteering. My first place was the Orange County Juvenile Hall System. And I saw us put people to sleep, eyes rolling, jokes made, and so forth. And it was frustrating. I had a lot of good information to share, and I love these kids because they're so entrepreneurial. They directed it the wrong way, but they're very entrepreneurial. They knew a lot about money. And so I started to bring in educators and people saying, hey, what can I do? How can I make this better? How can I present better? So I studied under a lot of real great presenters, Brendon Burchard being one of them. I brought on a bunch of educators that I learned from as consultants. And then we started to pick up some steam there personally. We started to do big venues, 1,000+ person events for these youth and young adults, bringing in celebrities, sports stars, and they really started to grow. And that allowed me to really invest into bringing in a team of content experts, right? So we brought in even though I knew a lot of the personal finance content, I still brought in those experts like in the credit vertical, in the debt management vertical, in the investment vertical. For the educators, we brought in educators that knew how to teach and just traditional education and bringing in those principles. We brought in, behavioral finance experts to really create the material and mold the material to best meet the needs of who would be teaching. And that went through many iterations, right? So we're on our, what was that, 2009? So like 15 years of iterations to where it is today. And the same thing with our coaching. I started as a coach early on, and I realized looking back, I made some mistakes. I was very analytical, right? Let's get down to the dollars and cents and let's work out this budget for you and do that. And I was missing that key ingredient. So really, I don't credit myself. I just was a ringleader to bring in high quality people that were experts in their space. And I loved learning myself. And that was a great enjoyment for me. Yeah. And from there, the certifications built themselves. It's like, okay, hey, we have a product here. Let's release that to the, to the world. But it really actually just started as my personal training.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you brought all those people in, because I've done enough courses where there's always kind of been that thought that, I'd like to bring some real teachers in, because there are real ways to teach well. It's not just knowing the content and delivering it kind of your way. And so I think that's really key that you did that. Your organization certifies coaches to bring this information to the communities. Do you
coaches and educators? So educators, the difference is educators teach groups, right? So they're teaching groups. You have to be familiar with group dynamics, how to manage classrooms, and so forth. Coaches and counselors are more one-on-one or with partners, right? So it's that more one-on-one experience where I know more about that person's finances than most of the time they do. Yeah. And so that's the main distinguisher. However, a coach's key trait, once they understand a person's situation, goals, needs, is to educate them and empower them so they can make the decisions for themselves. Coaches don't tell people what to do. They're helping, asking questions and providing education and providing guidance in a way, so they're formulating their own decision and they're making that qualified decision, so that when they go to sleep at night, they go, okay, I know why I made that decision. Nobody told me. I know why, and I feel next time I can make that decision for myself. Yeah, that's great. And so, originally you were bringing the content that you had to the people who were consuming it, and then you moved into doing the certifications for coaches, is what I'm taking away. Yeah. So, when we were doing so we didn't start out as a council, right? Yeah. We started out boots on the ground, delivering financial education, delivering coaching. But what I found is, I spent a lot of time on the road, and we couldn't scale the way we wanted to. I had dreams of reaching, every state and globally, right? We are there now, but those are my dreams early on, is really how do I get into these communities where people actually need it? Yeah, who may not have the money to fly me out and do these different things that are required. And that's where this started to shape up. And after we had our bigger events, people started to ask us, hey, can you share? Can we utilize this? We saw this. Is it okay if we use that curriculum? And that's when the real change, after about two and a half years in business, started to happen. It was very organic. Yeah. And it led us to where we're at now. But one thing I do miss that personal education, personal coaching. I'm not involved in that too
Yeah.
much with my role now, and I do miss that. But I do love talking about, hey, growing business, enterprise, et cetera.
Yeah.
And really from a social enterprise standpoint, I do believe we can make this world better by focusing on the needs of the community and growing a business from those needs. And I'm very appreciative of shows like yours and really anybody in the space that's an educator, advocate out there, providing access to quality financial education. It's just, we got a lot of people we need to help. And the more of us that can join together and raise this awareness and get that messaging out, the better. So definitely appreciate what you're doing here. And yeah, that's really where we're at here today, and hopefully the continued growth over the next 50 years.
Yeah, I love what you're doing. I think it's just fascinating that, I think it's great. I appreciate your honesty about, it is hard to scale when it's just you going out and doing, workshops or courses. I mean, I experienced the same thing. So I think that's a brilliant way to do it. And I can, as soon as you said you started out in a juvenile facility, I knew your heart was in the right place. That there are so many groups of people who need this so desperately, and there aren't any systems that they're in that are really going to provide it that quickly for them. And I think that's one of the things that pains me the most is, I had a mom who taught me how to balance a checkbook and, the ins and outs of things. She felt like that was part of her job as a mom. And she was, for her time, she was pretty smart about it. And I just always feel for people who don't have anybody who is going to show them some of these basic things. Because one of the points that you brought up initially was, a few seemingly small mistakes can really set you back a number of years in your life in terms of financial, wealth building or just getting secure. And so I think people don't necessarily realize that. It's easy to make the mistakes. It's hard to get back to center with financial mistakes. It takes a lot of effort. You have to know what to do. It takes time. So you have to be disciplined over that time. Yeah, so I really do appreciate what you're doing. So who, for educators and coaches out there, who are the people that you want to enroll in this?
The neat thing is it's really diverse as far as backgrounds, right?
Okay.
We have educators that are in schools that are like, hey, I want to bring this in. They're investing their own money to bring it into their school.
Wow.
We have nonprofits. We have faith-based groups. They're doing some cool things. We have a lot of financial service professionals, entrepreneurs. A lot of people are trying to start this type of enterprise, content developers. So really any day I could be talking to some random person that has a different profession, different upbringing. They're here for different reasons. The beauty is we do our client group calls every Friday. I love it because everybody on there is so different, yet they share one common goal. Many share the frustration where, hey, I wasn't really taught and I got into trouble. A lot of them, that was a big motivator. Other people just say, hey, I want to make a difference in this community. And I see this is the biggest problem facing the majority of people out there. And it's huge. It's widespread. If we look at, the data that comes out of people that have $1,000 in emergency money, less than 50%. Now that number always changes, but it's pretty bad now with inflation rates and so forth. American Psychological Association does a survey. I believe it's annual, but their last one was like 74% of people said money was their leading indicator or leading stress indicator in their lives. And as you mentioned, it spills out into other areas, relationships, workplace, productivity. It's not just a problem with money. If it was a problem with money, a contained problem, it wouldn't be so bad, but it spills into so many areas of life, even health, well-being, emotional happiness. And it's something we have a solution for. And the goal is just to encourage people and to get them into taking ownership and saying, hey, I know I'm experiencing these issues now. If I have kids, I want to make sure they don't experience those issues. But if they don't have kids, hey, how can I make sure that I'm working toward a better and more secure future for myself? And that's a big part of what we're doing from the advocacy standpoint.
Yeah, I love that. And it is a never-ending sort of educational experience. I have plenty of education. That doesn't mean I'm not learning literally every day. I hear something new, and I spent this year taking care of my parents, so I learned a whole new set of financial things that I never knew. And it's just fascinating how, you think you know a lot, and then you get into an arena that's different, and so you realize you know nothing about how this all works. So, I think it's great that you're getting people on that track to learn, because you should always be learning as you go through life. Money is one of those few relationships that no matter what, it's going to be with you forever. You can't really get rid of it. So,
True.
Yeah, so I think this is great. So do you, how far does it go? Is there sort of a next level with the training, or is it pretty comprehensive? I mean, how, you cover the basics, I'm assuming, saving, debt, what are credit, what other kinds of topics?
Yeah, so what our educator coaches are focused on a lot, I would say the majority is the foundation topics: credit, debt, loans, budgeting, savings, psychology, basics like that, loans and debt, etc. Income, even. I think income's a vital part. We include income, entrepreneurship in financial literacy, because without income, what can you manage, right? So I love that your show addresses the income and the money management piece. With a lot of our financial service professionals, they're talking about more the investing, insurance, and so forth. And our traditional educators could focus there. However, what we find is a lot of people that are at that upper echelon and already investing with that money in that risk capital that they have. They're not, that's a smaller audience than the majority of people in this country. The majority of people are just like, how do I get out of debt? How do I save more? And how do I start and prep to invest? So I'd say that's the majority of the country. The other 20%, they can get into those more advanced topics. I think with education and coaching, there's always a very clear, distinguished line between education and advice, which is important that nobody crosses in this space. Because to give advice, you need to be a financial professional, advisor, CPA, insurance rep, etc. But really, we want people to not only be able to build that foundation, but also work toward a position where they're able to invest and grow their money. We don't have any favorite investments. We don't make any recommendations. We don't have any specific ways we're telling people to do things. We're educating them on the opportunities out there, and they're finding their own paths as far as that goes. So, I know there's some people that say, hey, here's one way to pay off debt. And they said, this is the best way, only do it that way. Well, there's several ways to address debt. And so we're presenting them all, letting the person pick their own path. I think that's education. If we go beyond that, that's more advice. So, and everybody has a unique way they want to handle things. Money's so unique. It's people like to do things differently. I might have a much higher risk tolerance than other people, right? I can't be preaching my risk tolerance to somebody that has a very low risk tolerance. It wouldn't make sense, and it would put them in a place where they're worried and concerned every night. So money is very personal. You mentioned money personality. I think everybody has their own money personality, and a quality educator, quality coach will adapt what they're saying and how they're teaching to the personality, the money personality of that client that they're serving.
Oh, I love that you said that. That was just so speaking to me, because, I think one of the problems with the financial industry is sort of this, here's the formula, do these things. And people can't, finance is personal. You have to incorporate yourself into this whole thing. And I don't think we've been told enough that you can do that. There are multiple ways to pay off debt, and people will have different opinions about the best one, but the best one is the one you'll do. The best one is the one that, you can take on because it works for you. And so I think it's super important to give people permission. Basically, just give people permission to do things the way it will work for them, whether that's budgeting or paying off debt or saving. I mean, do the stuff, but do it your way. And I think that's part of the whole limit-free life thing, which is really a message that I try to put out there, that you want to live a more limit-free life. And if money is so rigid and so formulaic that, you have to follow a specific way, it's not going to work for people. So sadly.
Well said. It's, your point of, hey, you can take the path that you will do. I think that's well said, and I think that's great advice for people to follow. And again, and that not only extends from, addressing a specific challenge or issue you have with finances, but also finding those personalities, those books, those podcasts, those live events, whatever, however you like to learn, doing it that way, right? You don't have to do a spreadsheet on Excel. You can do multiple different ways. I'm even though I'm analytical, I don't look at the cents, right? I round everything. That's how I like to do my books, and accountants, other people would, roll their eyes sometimes at me. I'm a financial education teacher. I should get it down to the penny. I don't like it. It's too cumbersome. It doesn't make sense. I like to do quick figures. You're exactly right. Hey, do things that people should do, things that they'll actually act upon. The key is getting them momentum. Once they have these little successes, momentum builds. If they see, hey, they're able to negotiate their credit card rate down a few percent and get better payments, wonderful. If they were able to transfer that and get a better interest rate, great. If they're able to dedicate more money to that. So all these little momentum builders accumulate over time. And again, most of us, myself included, our initial money experience was negative. And it scares people off from facing it. As humans, we strive toward pleasure and away from pain. And when you're having to face something that you've made several mistakes on, and some of the things I can look back and go, that was dumb. Just to share one, for ultimate transparency, when I was younger in college, I made some riskier investments on credit cards, right? Credit card advances. So I learned the hard way, right? And I look back and it caused me pain for many years. And once you can start to have some successes. I felt momentum personally. I'd start to see bank accounts growing and some, just feeling more confident. It changed for me. And I think with most people, if I can just get them to their first, handful of successes where they can get to, to that feeling, it's much easier to carry forward. It's much easier to look at your task list the next day and go, hey, I'm ready to tackle my FICO score. I'm ready to address my debt load. I'm ready to start a savings plan or improve what I'm doing here, or ready to do my budget. And that's really where we want to get people.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good, because behavioral, change, you can set your mindset up for it. You can do all kinds of things, but it's exactly what you said. When you start seeing the debt go down or the savings go up or whatever it is, that's where you start believing in the new mindset. First, a new mindset might be sort of more of a hope than an actual thing that you're believing in. And those little moves, it's kind of the Atomic Habits kind of idea too, where these small things, small changes over the course of time will help you solidify a new mindset. And I just love what you said, because that's how you do it. It's not these big leaps. It's not, it's like most things. It's little small steps that help you because your identity changes. A lot of this, the mindset stuff we've been talking about, you have to shift who you think you are with money. And so where you were talking about the survival level aspect, that's one level, you get there. And then your identity has to really change to be that person who's not only surviving, but investing and building wealth or whatever it is that you're looking to do. So I think it's all a very interesting, money's way more interesting than people give it credit for, I think.
I agree. If you like psychology and so forth, and to your point about, hey, there's steps and processes. I know looking back, I started investing in real estate very young. And I talk to young people today and they're thinking, they always want to talk about crypto, right? If I could have told my old self, hey, it was great that I bought my first place at 19 years old. It was great that I continued to buy rental properties, but I lacked the basic fundamentals, the unsexy things, right? That was really the foundation. So I built houses without a foundation. And I see that happen with a lot of young people. Go into and talk to high school kids and kids around that age, college youth and so forth. And they want to talk about crypto and so forth, which I think is good, but it's always, hey, let's do this in stages. So we're making sure that you're doing it the right way. You're building up that foundation. So if you want to do that, any type of investment, real estate, whatever it may be, you need to start from a base foundation. And I think with some of these younger kids, it's great the how inspired they are. We see a lot of new entrepreneurs out there in the younger generation. I think there's huge opportunities for the youth of America today. And it's just, I think, more of the basics. We need to, make the basics sexy again, right? The crypto, the real estate, that's all, wow, okay, fun. But we need to make the basics sexy. And I think, again, finding those people that they like to listen to that are focused on the basics, but also talk about the other opportunities, I think is a winning combination.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. I totally agree. And I see that too with younger people because they're seeing it all on social media. People are just, jumping over all the basics and suddenly becoming millionaires. But I see it with older people too. People want to do a lot of these, especially real estate, before they have an emergency fund or, they're just, it's hard to feel like you've got to wait a year or two to do these things that you want and build a foundation. You're right. It's the boring stuff. It's, doesn't really get you that excited, but it's so necessary because otherwise that stress and that financial wellness, you're not going to achieve that if you're still like kind of teetering on the brink all the time. Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. It's that little patience, that delayed gratification. It's a muscle that's hard to build, especially with all these influencers, or I should say influencers being one of them.
Yeah.
But it's a muscle that we need to build, just like working out, just like healthy eating. It requires time to build that delayed gratification. Again, we humans are impatient just by birthright. Hey, we want what we want it now, and we feel we deserve it, right? Behavioral finance in a box there. I think, hey, if we can help kids build up that delayed gratification, and parents can do so by, helping them develop that instead of when a kid wants something at a store, saying, okay, hey, you can work and save and do extra chores to get that, allowing them to spend their own money. And if they want to go blow it when they're in the store, the conversation changes from mom, buy it for me. It could be like, okay, hey, do you have that money saved? Mm-hmm. Okay, you want to buy this teddy bear? Oh, I thought you wanted to save up for this bike. What's more important to you, this teddy bear or the bike? So parents can really get involved with that delayed gratification muscle. So by the time their kids are ready to move out on their own, it's not something they have to build when there's a lot of risk with these decisions. It's something they built in a safe, secure environment.
Yeah, that could be another whole show, actually, because as a parent, I know what I grew up with, which is exactly what you were saying. I mean, there's no way I was getting whatever I wanted when I was a kid. But as a parent, I might have gone astray a little bit. So I don't know what's happened in the last however many years, but something. So that's a topic for another day. Yeah, this is great. I really align with what you're doing and everything you've said. So it's always fun for me to have a kindred spirit on the show. How do people connect with you? How do they find out more about what you're doing? How do they get involved?
Yeah, really, anybody that has a passion for bringing financial wellness to their community, our website's financialeducatorscouncil.org. If you want to connect with me directly, Vince Shorb at LinkedIn, and I look forward to talk with you. But again, hey, we work with really anybody that has that passion. Doesn't matter your background or what your experiences are. We get a lot of people that say, hey, I'm not in the best financial situation. Can I help others still? It's like, absolutely yes. So sometimes that's the best teacher because you're going through it with them. And again, we welcome everybody. I appreciate your show, what you're doing. I love that you're getting that career, money, entrepreneurship message out there to the masses. Any way we can help you, please let us know. But and also to your listeners, you're taking the first step right here by listening to Michelle's show, and wish you continued good fortune on your road to education around finances.
Well, thank you, Vince. That was very kind. I really appreciate people doing what you're doing, and I love that you are. You have found a way to take it to more people, which is what we need. It's really got to get out there, and we forget how many people really aren't getting this education. I mean, when you're in the finance world, you think more people actually have more knowledge. You sort of forget about how many people actually there are that need this. So we'll both keep doing the work, and yeah, I'm excited to learn more about your organization too. I think that's a terrific vehicle for everybody. I hope that a lot of educators are seeing the need and are getting involved in that too, so they can bring it to wherever they're currently educating people. That's great. So thank you very much for being here. I'll put the links to things in the show notes. And yeah, I really appreciate your time and what you're doing, and appreciate all the wisdom you shared today here on the show. Very valuable. I know everybody's going to get a lot out of that. And so, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay. Well, thank you, audience, for being here. We love having you listen to the show. So if you enjoyed it, please leave us a nice little 5-star rating and a review if you're so inclined. And you can find us on all the podcast platforms, on Roku, on the Limit Free Life YouTube channel. We love bringing this content and this information to you. I do hope it's helping. I hope you'll share it. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week.